Okay, so how important is pronunciation to learning Chinese? I believe that is something that is on many parents' minds. They feel that my children don't even speak Mandarin nowadays. They are not pronouncing words the right way. There are many mispronounced words here and there. I think a lot of that kind of queries, it is normal to have those kind of queries. Okay, but I think as a Chinese educator myself, I think I can attest to the fact that actually pronunciation is important, but not the only thing that we should look for or even like focus heavily on. Okay, when we study Chinese. Okay, the reason is this. It's because Chinese is a language that is very heavy on actually the writing system. Okay, the writing system and the way we write the characters, because different characters can have the same sound and yet have different writing and different meanings, of course. Okay, so even if you get the sound correct, sometimes you may not get the meaning correct, right? Because there are so many words, characters, even different meaning, and yet they are pronounced the same way. So the way you need to differentiate them is to use different combinations of words. For example, you need to have a sentence in order for these sounds to make sense. So for example, if you will say xiang, then am I talking about the elephant xiang or the look alike? I look like you xiang. So I need to string it in a sentence for it to make sense. For example, I need to say 我要去动物园看象. Then yeah, perhaps I'm talking about I want to go to the zoo and look at elephants. For if in another sentence 我觉得你们两个很像, then I'm talking about two of you look alike, right? So it needs to be in a sentence for it to make sense, right? So and then when we write it, it's different characters, different writing also. Okay, so they're actually essentially two words, although they have this same sound, okay, so to speak. So and also if you talk about standard pronunciation, if you talk about whether we are pronouncing words correctly, of course, okay, with the level of Mandarin Chinese nowadays in Singapore, it is sad to have to say that many students mispronounce many words. Okay, but that is not to say that the solution to that is to focus too much, just on pronunciation. Okay, because we do know that actually pronunciation is something that is mispronunciation rather is something that is very, very prevalent across all language learning, whether it is Chinese or even English. Are we pronouncing all English words correctly? And does that mean, does it mean that when you pronounce one or two words incorrectly in a very colloquial Singaporean way, does it mean that your English is not good? Okay, I think that is a very, very good question. For example, the word opportunity. Okay, many Singaporeans, Malaysians may in this region we may like to pronounce it as opportunity, right? So, but you understand and I understand what is opportunity, right? What is even when we don't pronounce it the right way, which is opportunity. Restaurant, right? We don't pronounce restaurant, but we say restaurant. I go to this restaurant. So, but you understand, right? And does it mean that just by pronouncing restaurant and opportunity wrongly, does it mean that your English is bad? I don't think it is that clear cut. This thing, an indicator, right, of your English standard. So you need to look at as a whole how this person uses the language, how confident is this person when he's speaking and writing, right? So we wouldn't so quickly conclude that this person is not good at English just because he doesn't pronounce restaurant or opportunity the right way. Similarly, we shouldn't conclude that a person's Chinese or Mandarin is bad just because he pronounces certain words a certain way that is maybe due to local colloquial habits or dialect influence or kind of thing. You get what I mean? So even in mainland China, not everyone pronounces every word the same way, right? And in fact, Beijingers may may also pronounce certain words not in the same way as the standard 普通话, as the official standard pronunciation, then you have mispronounced this word, but because this word is pronounced as such in spread manner in that region, in that particular region, everyone speaks it the same way, as long as people understand. And I think for many times, just like the restaurant and opportunity example that I've given, most of the time people understand what you're talking about, so why be so picky about it, right? Why be so picky about it? So if we don't, and of course English is actually a more picky language when it comes to pronunciation, because English is a phonetic language. You need to understand English writing is based on the phonetics, right? You write the words, there's a certain way of pronouncing it on those letters. Of course, it's not always accurate because English has borrowed words from French, from German, from Latin, so they may be pronounced differently according to their origin, according to the source of this word. So Chinese doesn't have this problem, okay? That we don't need to pronounce a Chinese character the way it used to be pronounced in Japanese, for example, right? We can pronounce it according to Mandarin, or if you are speaking dialect, then according to Cantonese, Hokkien, whatever. So we use the same writing, but we pronounce it differently according to our dialects. Okay, so the Chinese is not, and that's also because Chinese is not a phonetic language. It is not a language that is based on phonetics. We do not. We focus more attention on the writing. We allow the different reading of that word, but we do not. But we write it the same way. But English is like, okay, French pronounce it this way, English pronounce it this way, German pronounce it this way, but maybe exactly the same or maybe similar spelling, so to speak. So it's very, very different. We cannot learn. I think we cannot learn Chinese the totally same way as we learn English. Okay. The attitude towards pronunciation versus writing is also a little bit different. Okay, so I would say if we are not that picky for English, then we should be even less picky when it comes to Chinese. So, but then of course, having said that, okay, in Singapore we have a problem whereby it is not, our students are not mispronouncing words because it is a local colloquial way of pronouncing it. They are pronouncing it wrongly because they didn't learn it well. They get it wrong not because they were influenced by local dialect. They get it because nowadays nobody even speaks dialects. No, they get it wrong because they didn't learn it well, right? They got it wrong because they confuse the word with another word and then they mispronounce it. Sometimes they also miswrite it. So it's very, very linked, I would say, also with the writing of the Chinese characters. Okay, so in order to get things right, in order to improve your pronunciation, the focus is actually not to focus on just the pronunciation itself, but to have a more holistic understanding of how words are pronounced, how different words, they can have the same sound, but there are different writings, there are different, we call it 音四字. That means the sound is similar, right? The sound is similar, but then the words, the characters, the writing, and the meaning are different. Okay, so students need to understand the 音四字 and not be confused among, the 音四字. Okay, and sometimes it's not even close, but they confuse it. Okay, so what we need to do is not to focus more on pronunciation and correct our children whenever they say one or two words wrongly. I think the more effective solution is to get them to speak more, right? Get them to understand why that word is pronounced, for example, wrongly. For example, that kind of thing happens very regularly in my Chinese classes. Whenever I make my students do reading, okay, whenever they read a word wrongly, sometimes I allow them to make that mistake first. Okay, I let them read through because I also don't want to dampen their confidence. I don't want to keep correcting them. Then the whole passage of, for example, 30 words, and then they get 10 words wrong, and then you correct those 10 words. It's going to take up, number one, it's going to take up a lot of time. Okay, you are going to spend a lot of time, you're going to waste a lot of time correcting, and number two, most importantly, they are not going to remember. Okay, they're not going to remember. If you correct them each and every time they say it wrongly, they're still going to make students are going to mispronounce it again and again and again. So I would let them finish the whole passage, and then I will go through again, okay, this word you didn't pronounce it correctly, that word, and then even while going through, I wouldn't just give them the correct answer and then move on. They will not remember, right? So I will always ask, like, you pronounce it this way, what is the meaning, right? Do you think what you pronounce has any meaning to you? Does it make sense to you? By pronouncing that way, is there a meaning to that? And if not, then that is when only I will review the answer, and then they will, oh yeah, 游泳, oh yeah, why didn't I know this, right? So that actually helps them to recognize the words. Okay, that helps in two folds. Number one, to know that sound is written like that, and number two, to remember that this writing is this sound. It's a two-way thing, the sound with this meaning is written like that, this character written like that has this sound and this meaning. It is you need to work both ways. In Chinese you can't work one way because it's not a phonetic language. You can't apple, apple, and then you remember, okay, this is the sound, this is the spelling, this is the meaning. But in Chinese, no. Okay, you need to go one step further. You need to say, okay, 苹果, right? 苹, there's a 草字头 because it's a plant, and then there's a 平坦的平在下面，它的是它的音，所以平然后果水果 OK， so 当你看到平的时候，当它是水果的意思的时候，它是这样写有草字头；当它不是苹果的意思的时候，它这个没有草字头。it takes more time per word, okay, but I would say that it is because when you are teaching, you are connecting that word with other words, with other similar sounding characters and similar writing characters. You reinforce. Okay, while going through that word, you also take the opportunity to reinforce other words that he already knows, and then to make associations, okay, with other words that he already knows, to increase the understanding of that word, of that new word, as well as the impression he has for that particular word. Okay, so I think it's you can't learn Chinese the exact same way you learn English, because there's a lot of emphasis on writing. You need to learn Chinese sound and meaning together with the writing in order for the mind to make sense and make connections and associations between words and words, between words and sounds and writing, okay, between meaning and sound and writing. It is not a phonetic language. It is one of those few languages in the world still surviving that uses pictogram instead of phonetic. So I would say that the hardest part of Chinese is the writing, because it's not phonetic, but it helps. When you learn it together, you help to reinforce and to revise. Whenever you learn reading, you are also learning writing. Whenever you are doing writing, you are also revising on your reading. It works you need to do it together. If you segregate it, you are actually wasting your time. You're actually not learning it in the most efficient and effective way, and you're going to waste a lot of time, because you have to learn, like, already the speaking in itself is very, very difficult, okay, because the whole set of grammar is and the usage of words and phrases is so different from English. So in order to do that, you really need to spend a lot of time, and then if you don't do it together with your writing, you are going to need to spend another set of time, and I can tell you the teachers are just enjoying the money that you are throwing to them. Okay, so why not? Okay, for Chinese, I would strongly suggest you learn the writing and the speaking together. And of course, when you learn it this way, at the start it's going to be very, very laborious. It's going to take a very long time just to get one or two words understood, because you need to do sound, meaning, writing, associate with other words. The start is going to be very, very difficult, but once you have that foundation there, it's so easy after that.